Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Kilpatrick, and I play Simon, Dr. Seward, and Marius in the Dracula Inquiry. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @the_Artsonists, that's ARTSONISTS, for updates on episode releases, live streams, and other fun stuff. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Dracula Inquiry. You would think the Dewey Decimal System was universal, but no, I have to go through every stack looking for reference books that should be easy to locate.
Sorry, geez, it's 9 a.m. Have you been here long, Si?
No, not long at all.
You didn't bother waking me up.
Sorry, I just,
Relax, I'm teasing. I gotcha. And I brought coffee that Andre made. It smells and tastes divine. I know you aren't drinking, but you will consume the bean, right?
I subsist on the beans, so absolutely. Thank you. I must have missed Andre when I left.
He's scary good at giving off that ninja butler feeling. Do you think he was born with it, or is it taught somewhere?
What, at like a butler school?
Yeah.
Probably not. He might just figure it works well with the territory. We are in Dracula territory, after all.
Fair. Hey, so Annika said she was gonna reach out to you when we got here, so have you heard anything?
No, I haven't.
Right. Gotcha. Maybe she figures we're all jet-lagged and didn't need a call waking us up.
Maybe. Lace, I know I said it before, but I...
Right. Sorry.
So, last night, what did you think?
Oh, it was amazing. Can you imagine how great it would have been if Harker had kept those letters? Ugh! It would have proved everything.
Maybe. Or everyone would have said he faked it.
Oh, please. People thought paper cutouts of fairies and a photo were real. You could fake anything back then and people would believe you. So maybe this is fake too, but at least it isn't pissing off the Fae.
Right. We have to take it with a grain of salt. I'm honestly a little surprised at Mr. Harker's lack of self-preservation. He had to know the whole thing was off, right?
Sus as fuck, that's for sure. The carriage ride over, that is straight up white male protagonist in a horror movie confidence at its best.
You can say, Jamie, we're both thinking it. Anyways, idiotic bravado aside, I did get a little work done before you got here.
Ooh, yeah?
Yeah, check this out.
May 5th. The light and warmth and the Count's courteous welcome seemed to have dissipated all my doubts and fears. Having then reached my normal state, I discovered that I was half famished with hunger. My host, who stood on one side of the great fireplace, leaning against the stonework, made a graceful wave of his hand to the table and said,
"I pray you be seated and sup how you please. You will, I trust, excuse me that I do not join you, but I have dined already, and I do not sup."
I now had an opportunity of observing him. His face was a very strong aquiline, with high bridge of the thin nose and peculiarly arched nostrils, with lofty domed forehead and hair growing scantily round the temples, but profusely elsewhere. His eyebrows were very massive, almost meeting over the nose, and with bushy hair that seemed to curl in on its own profusion. The mouth, so far as I could see it under the heavy moustache, was fixed and rather cruel-looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth, those protruding over the lips. For the rest, his ears were pale and at the tops extremely pointed. The chin was broad and strong, and the cheeks firm, though thin. The general effect was that of extraordinary pallor. Hitherto I had noticed the backs of his hands as they lay on his knees in the firelight, and they seemed rather white and fine. But seeing them now close to me, I could not but notice that they were rather coarse, broad, with squat fingers. Strange to say, there were hairs in the centre of the palms. The nails were long and fine and cut to a sharp point. As the Count leaned over me, and his hand touched me, I could not repress a shudder. The Count, evidently noticing it, drew back, and with a grim sort of smile, which showed more than it did yet of his protuberant teeth, sat himself down again on his own side of the fireplace. There seemed a strange stillness over everything, but as I listened I heard, as if from down below in the valley, the howling of many wolves. The Count's eyes gleamed, and he said,
Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make. Ah, sir, you dwellers in the city cannot enter into the feelings of the hunter. But you must be tired. Your bedroom is all ready, and tomorrow you shall sleep as late as you will. I have to be away till the afternoon, so sleep well and dream well.
May 7th. We went thoroughly into the business of the purchase of the estate at Purfleet. When I had told him the facts and got his signature to the necessary papers, and had written a letter to them ready to post to Mr. Hawkins, he began to ask me how I had come across so suitable a place. I read him in the notes which I had made at the time. When I had finished, he said,
I am glad that it is old and big. I myself am of an old family, and to live in a new house would kill me. A house cannot be made habitable in a day, and after all, how few days go to make up a century. I rejoice also that there is a chapel of old times. We Transylvanian nobles love not to think that our bones may lie amongst the common dead. I seek not gaiety nor mirth, not the bright voluptuousness of much sunshine and sparkling waters which please the young and gay. I am no longer young, and my heart, through weary years of mourning over the dead, is not attuned to mirth. I love the shade and the shadow, and would be alone with my thoughts when I may.
Somehow his words and his look did not seem to accord, or else it was the cast of his face made his smile look malignant and saturnine. May 8th. I only slept a few hours when I went to bed, and feeling that I could not sleep any more, got up. I had hung my shaving glass by the window and was just beginning to shave. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder.
Good morning.
I started, for it amazed me that I had not seen him, since the reflection of the glass covered the whole room behind me. In starting, I cut myself slightly, but did not notice it at the moment. Having answered the Count's salutation, I turned the glass again to see how I had been mistaken. This time there could be no error, for the man was close to me, and I could see him over my shoulder, but there was no reflection of him in the mirror. But the instant that I saw that the cut had bled a little, and that the blood was trickling over my chin, I laid down the razor, turning as I did half round to look for some sticking plaster. When the Count saw my face, his eyes blazed with a sort of demonic fury, and he made a grab at my throat. I drew away, and his hand touched the string of beads which held the crucifix. It made an instant change in him, for the fury passed so quickly that I could hardly believe it was ever there.
Take care. Take care how you cut yourself. It is more dangerous than you think in this country.
Then, seizing the shaving glass, he went on.
And this is the wretched thing that has done the mischief. It is a foul bauble of man's vanity. Away with it.
And opening the heavy window with one wrench of his terrible hand, he flung out the glass, which was shattered into 1,000 pieces onto the stone of the courtyard far below. Then he withdrew without a word. May 12th.
Have you written since your first letter to our friend, Mr. Peter Hawkins, or to any other?
It was with some bitterness in my heart that I answered that I had not, that as yet I had not seen any opportunity of sending letters to anyone.
Then right now, my young friend, write to our friend and to any other, and say, if it will please you, that you shall stay with me until a month from now.
Do you wish me to stay so long? I asked, for my heart grew cold at the thought.
I desire it much. Nay, I will take no refusal. When your master, employer, what will you, engaged that someone should come on his behalf, it was understood that my needs only were to be consulted. I have not stinted. Is it not so?
What could I do but bow acceptance? It was Mr. Hawkins' interest, not mine, and I had to think of him, not myself. And besides, while Count Dracula was speaking, there was that in his eyes and his bearing which made me remember that I was a prisoner, and that if I had wished it I could have no choice. The Count saw his victory in my bow, and his mastery in the trouble of my face, for he began at once to use them, but in his own smooth, resistless way.
I pray you, my good young friend, that you will not discourse of things other than business in your letters. It will doubtless please your friends to know that you are well, and that you look forward to getting home to them. Is it not so?
As he spoke, he handed me 3 sheets of notepaper and 3 envelopes. Noticing his quiet smile with the sharp canine teeth lying over the red underlip, I understood as well as if he had spoken that I should be careful what I wrote, for he would be able to read it. So, I determined to only write formal notes now, but to fully write to Mr. Hawkins in secret, and also to Mina, for to her I could write in shorthand which would puzzle the Count if he did see it. When I had written my 2 letters, I sat in quiet, reading a book whilst the Count wrote several notes, referring as he wrote to some books in his table. He took up the letters on the table and stamped them carefully, and then turning to me said,
I trust you will forgive me, but I have much work to do in private this evening. You will, I hope, find all things as you wish.
At the door he turned, and after a moment's pause said,
Let me advise you, my dear young friend, nay, let me warn you, in all seriousness, that should you leave these rooms, you will not by any chance go to sleep in any other part of the castle. It is old, and has many memories. There are bad dreams for those who sleep unwisely. Be warned. Should sleep now or ever overcome you, then haste to your own chamber, or to these rooms, for your rest will then be safe. But if you be not careful in this respect, then...
He finished his speech in a gruesome way, for he motioned with his hands as if he were washing them. I quite understood. My only doubt was as to whether any dream could be more terrible than the unnatural, horrible net of gloom and mystery which seemed closing around me. Later, I endorsed the last words written, but this time there is no doubt in question. I shall not fear to sleep in any place where he is not. I have placed the crucifix over the head of my bed, and I imagine my rest is thus freer from dreams, and there it shall remain. When he left me, I went to my room. After a little while, not hearing any sound, I came out and went up the stone stairs to where I could look out towards the south. There was some sense of freedom in the vast expanse, inaccessible though it was to me, as compared with the narrow darkness of the courtyard. As I leaned from the window, my eye was caught by something moving a story below me, and somewhat to my left, where I imagined from the order of the rooms that the windows of the Count's own room would look out. The window at which I stood was tall and deep, stone-mullioned, and though weather-worn, was still complete, but it was evidently many a day since the case had been there. I drew back behind the stonework and looked out carefully. What I saw was the Count's head coming out from the window. I did not see the face, but I knew the man by the neck and the movements, but my very feelings changed to repulsion and terror when I saw the whole man slowly emerge from the window and begin to crawl down the castle wall, face down with his cloak spreading out around him like great wings. At first I could not believe my eyes. I thought it was some trick of the moonlight, some weird effect of the shadow. But I kept looking, and there could be no delusion. I saw the fingers and toes grasp the corner of the stones, worn clear of the mortar by the stress of years, and by thus using every projection and inequality, moved downwards with considerable speed, just as a lizard moves along a wall. What manner of man is this? Or what manner of creature is it in the semblance of a man? I fear the dread of this horrible place overpowering me. I am in fear, in awful fear, and there is no escape for me. I am encompassed about with terrors that I dare not think of.
Oh, man.
Right? So, based on what we learned here...
We can probably assume that if this was true, this was where a bunch of the tropes started, right? The eyes, the teeth, the strength, the Spider-Man climbing. Gotta say, he's described as much uglier than I expected.
Well, you know how the mystical is sexy now, and people will make anything sexy. It's a whole thing. Remember the whole werewolf revolution? How those guys are so hot? But this is good. We really struck gold here.
So, I think what you're saying is, thank you, Lacey, for your tall, hot bod, because without that, we'd never have reached the journal.
Yes, thank you, my very tall friend.
You forgot a part.
I'm not looking to get beat up by Morgan, you know.
Boo, they wouldn't.
No? Well, ask them yourself. I think I hear Jamie trying to weasel his way out of something, so you know Morgan is close behind.
Sorry, didn't I? Can't I just apologize?
Hey, Jay, not here, okay?
Morgan, please. I'm serious. Just let
No.
me...
Hey, babe. You look like you just struck gold, huh?
Hey, Simon! What's up, man? You didn't even stay for breakfast. Andre made the most amazing Belgian waffles. Or is it Romanian waffles?
Jamie.
What? It's a legit question.
Is it, though?
I think it is still Belgian, per the recipe. But, to break up the beginning of this horrible Seinfeld bit, behold, Simon and I have decoded more of the diary. Even Jamie could read this cursive, I bet.
Okay, harsh. Like, I can read pretty crazy handwriting, you know. Case files, evidence, and confessions are all written in chicken scratch, and I have to read that shit all the time.
Jamie's stellar deciphering abilities aside, there was a lot of interesting information in this section we just went through. Dracula climbed down a wall like a lizard?
Wait, what? I'm sorry, that's gotta be bullshit, right? That's some crazy cartoon nonsense.
Well, it might be true if the journal is real.
That is a big fucking if there, dude.
Still, this is just starting to get good. Come on, come read with us.
Well, we were gonna check out the town a bit more before lunch, but sure thing, babe. For you.
Thank you very much.
Right, so Harker has just seen a bunch of spooky shit, and we've written it all down here, and he's only just starting to get a little apprehensive.
Right. Classic white boy stupidity.
Look, just give me the book. I'll read it.
What? Am I wrong? Look at what those two wrote down. Fangs, super strength. Seriously, I would have been like, nope, I'm out.
I don't think he could leave. Dracula seemed to have a sway over him.
What?
Oh, I mean, he seems like, well, that Harker can't really say no to the guy. He's got a powerful personality.
Did you guys know that there was a harem of vampire ladies in this castle?
What? Where are you? Did you skip something?
Well, yeah, there was some boring stuff here, and then suddenly, boom! 3 ladies trying to kill him with, sex? Oh, no, Harker! Don't do it, man! It's not worth it!
What? No vampire orgies for him?
Ooh, let me see. I don't think he's into it. Oh, looks like he doesn't want to betray Mina. That's sweet.
Yeah, but they still want to eat him, like, literally and figuratively. That's so not cool. It's, it's okay. Dracula doesn't want them to hurt him. Here, I'll start here, okay?
Not just because you're embarrassed by the sex?
No. Look, let me just read. I was conscious of the presence of the Count, and of his being as if lapped in a storm of fury. As my eyes opened involuntarily, I saw his strong hand grasp the slender neck of the fair woman and with giant's power draw it back. The blue eyes transformed with fury, the white teeth champing with rage, and the fair cheeks blazing red with passion. But the Count! Never did I imagine such wrath and fury even to the demons of the pit. His eyes were positively blazing. The red light in them was lurid, as if the flames of hellfire blazed behind them. His face was death. The thick eyebrows that met over the nose now seemed like a heaving bar of white, hot metal. With a fierce sweep of his arm, he hurled the woman from him, and then motioned to the others as though he were beating them back. It was the same imperious gesture that I had seen used to the wolves, and in a voice which, though low, almost in a whisper, seemed to cut through the air and then ring around the room, he said,
How dare you touch him, any of you? How dare you cast eyes on him when I had forbidden it? Back! I tell you all, this man belongs to me. Beware how you meddle with him, or you'll have to deal with me.
The fair girl, with a laugh of ribald coquetry, turned to answer him.
You yourself never loved. You never love.
In this the other woman joined, and such mirthless, hard, soulless laughter rang through the room that it almost made me faint to hear. It seemed like the pleasure of fiends. And then the Count turned, after looking at my face attentively, and said in a soft whisper,
Yes, I too can love. You yourselves can tell it from the past. Is it not so? Well, now I promise you that when I am done with him, you shall kiss him at your will. Now go. Go. I must awaken him. There is work to be done.
Are we to have nothing tonight?
She pointed to the bag which he had thrown upon the floor, and which moved as though there was some living thing within it. For answer he nodded his head. One of the women jumped forward and opened it, and if my ears did not deceive me, there was a gasp and a low wail as if a half-smothered child. The women closed round, whilst I was aghast with horror, but as I looked they disappeared, and with them the dreadful bag. Then the horror overcame me, and I sank down unconscious. May 19th. I'm surely in the toils. Last night the Count asked me in the suavest tone to write 3 letters. One saying that my work here was nearly done, and that I should start for home within a few days. Another, that I was starting the next morning from the time of the letter, and the third that I had left the castle and arrived in Bistritz. I would fain have rebelled, but felt that in the present state of things that it would be madness to quarrel openly with the Count whilst I am so absolutely in his power. And to refuse would be to excite his suspicion and arouse his anger. He knows that I know too much, and that I must not live lest I be dangerous to him. My only chance is to prolong my opportunities. Something may occur which will give me the chance to escape. I therefore pretended to fall in with his views, and asked him what dates I should put on the letters. He calculated a minute and then said,
The first shall be June 12. The second, June 19. And the third, June 29.
I now know the span of my life. God help me. May 28th. There is a chance of escape, or at any rate, being able to send word home. A band of Skinny have come to the castle, and are encamped in the courtyard. These Skinny are Romani, and I have notes of them in my book. I shall write some letters home, and try to get them to have them posted. I have written the letters. Mina's is in shorthand, and I have simply asked Mr. Hawkins to communicate with her. To her I have explained my situation, but without the horrors which I may only surmise. It would shock and frighten her to death were I to expose my heart to her. Should the letters not carry, then the Count shall not yet know my secret or the extent of my knowledge. I have given the letters. I threw them through the bars of my window with a gold piece, and made what signs I could to have them posted. The man who took them pressed them to his heart and bowed, and then put them in this cap. I could do no more. The Count has come. He sat down beside me and said in his smoothest voice as he opened 2 letters,
Miss Ganny has given me these, of which, though I know not whence they come, I shall of course take care. See, one is from you, and to my friend, Mr. Peter Hawkins. The other is a vile thing, an outrage upon friendship and hospitality. It is not signed. Well, so it cannot matter to us.
and he calmly held the letter and envelope in the flame of the lamp till they were consumed. Then he went on.
The letter to Hawkins that I shall, of course, send on, since it is yours, and your letters are sacred to me.
May 31st. This morning when I woke, I thought I would provide myself with some paper and envelopes from my bag, and keep them in my pocket, so that I might write in case I should get an opportunity. But again a surprise, again a shock. Every scrap of paper was gone, and with it all my notes, my memoranda relating to railways and travels, my letters of credit. In fact, all that might be useful to me were I once outside the castle. I sat and pondered a while, and then some thoughts occurred to me, and I made search of my portmanteau and in the wardrobe where I had placed my clothes. The suit in which I had travelled was gone, and also my overcoat and rug. I could find no trace of them anywhere. This looked to be some new scheme of villainy. June 24th, before morning. Last night the Count left me early and locked himself in his own room. As soon as I dared, I ran up to the winding stairs and looked out of the window, which is opened south. I thought I would watch for the Count, for there is something going on. The Skinny are quartered somewhere in the castle and are doing work of some kind. I know it, for now and then I hear a faraway muffled sound, as of mattock and spade, and whatever it is, it must be the end of some ruthless villainy. I had been at the window somewhat less than a half an hour, when I saw something coming out of the Count's window. I drew back and watched carefully until the whole man emerged. It was a new shock to me to find that he had the suit of clothes on which I had worn whilst travelling here, and slung over his shoulder the terrible bag which I had seen the women take away. There can be no doubt as to his quest, and in my garb too. This, then, is his new scheme of evil, that he will allow others to see me as they think, and so that he may both leave evidence that I have been seen in towns or villages posting my own letters, and that any wickedness which he may do shall by the local people be attributed to me. When a couple of hours had passed, I heard something stirring in the Count's room, something like a sharp wail quickly suppressed. And then there was silence. Deep, awful silence, which chilled me. With a beating heart I tried the door, but I was locked in my prison and could do nothing. I sat down and simply cried. And as I sat, I heard the sound in the courtyard without, the agonized cry of a woman. I rushed to the window and, throwing it up, peered out between the bars. There, indeed, was a woman with dishevelled hair, holding her hands over her heart as one distressed with running. She was leaning against the corner of the gateway. When she saw my face at the window, she threw herself forward and shouted in a voice laden with menace,
"Monster! Give me my child!"
She threw herself on her knees, and raising up her hands, cried the same words and tones which wrung my heart.
Monster!
Then she tore her hair and beat her breast and abandoned herself to all the violence of extravagant emotion. Finally, she threw herself forward, and though I could not see her, I could hear the beating of her naked hands against the door. Somewhere, I overheard, probably on the tower, I heard the voice of the Count calling in his harsh metallic whisper. His call seemed to be answered from far and wide by the howling of wolves. Before many minutes had passed, a pack of them poured through the wide entrance into the courtyard. There was no cry from the woman, and the howling of wolves was but short. Before long, they streamed away singly, licking their lips. I could not pity her, for I now knew what had become of her child, and she was better dead. What shall I do? What can I do? How can I escape from this dreadful thing of night and gloom and fear? I went searching for a key or exit, and finally came across a heavy door. It was open, and led through a stone passage to a circular stairway, which went steeply down. I descended, minding carefully where I went, for the stairs were dark and being lit only by loopholes in the heavy masonry. At the bottom there was a dark tunnel-like passage. Through it came a deathly, sickly odour, the odour of old earth being newly turned. As I went through the passage, the smell grew closer and heavier. At last I pulled open a heavy door which stood ajar, and found myself in an old, ruined chapel, which had evidently been used as a graveyard. The roof was broken, and in two places were steps leading to vaults, but the ground had been recently dug over, and earth placed in great wooden boxes. I went down even into the vaults, where the dim light struggled, although to do so was a dread to my very soul. Into two of these I went, but saw nothing except fragments of old coffins and piles of dust. In the third, however, I made a discovery. There, in one of the great boxes, of which there were 50 in all, on a pile of newly dug earth, lay the Count. He was either dead or asleep. I could not say which, for the eyes were open and stony, but without the glassiness of death, and the cheeks had a warmth of life through all their pallor. The lips were as red as ever, but there was no sign of movement, no pulse, no breath, no beating of the heart. I bent over him and tried to find any sign of life, but in vain. He could not have lain there long, for the earthly smell would have passed away in a few hours. By the side of the box was its cover, pierced with holes here and there. I thought he might have the keys on him, but when I went to search, I saw the dead eyes, and in them, dead though they were, such a look of hate, though unconscious of me or my presence, that I fled from the place, leaving the Count's room by the window, crawling again up the castle wall. Regaining my room, I threw myself panting upon the bed and tried to think. June 29th. Today is the day of my last letter, and the Count has taken steps to prove that it was genuine, for again I saw him leave the castle by the same window and in my clothes. As he went down the wall, lizard fashion, I wished I'd had a gun, or some lethal weapon that I might destroy him. But I fear no weapon wrought alone by man's hand would have any effect on him. I dared not wait to see him return, for I feared to see those weird sisters. I came back to the library, and read there till I fell asleep. I was awakened by the Count, who looked at me as grimly as a man can look, and said,
Tomorrow, my friend, we must part. You return to your beautiful England. I to some work which may have such an end that we may never meet. Your letter home has been dispatched. Tomorrow I shall not be here, but all shall be ready for your journey. In the morning come some Scani, who also have some labours of their own here, and also some Slovaks. When they have gone, my carriage shall come for you, and shall bear you to the Borgo Pass to meet the diligence from Bukovina to Bistritz. But I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
I suspected him, and determined to test his sincerity. Sincerity. It seems like such a profanation of the word to write it in connection with such a monster. So, I asked him point blank, why may I not go tonight?
Because, dear sir, my coachman and horses are away on a mission.
But I would walk with pleasure. I want to get away at once. He smiled. Such a soft, smooth, diabolical smile that I knew there was some trick behind his smoothness.
And your bags?
I do not care about it. I can send for it some other time. The Count stood, and said with a sweet courtesy which made me rub my eyes, it seemed so real.
You English have a saying which is close to my heart. Welcome the coming, speed the parting guest. Come with me, my dear young friend. Not an hour shall you wait in my house against your will, though sad am I at your going that you so suddenly desire it. Come.
With a stately gravity, he, with the lamp, preceded me down the stairs and along the hall. Suddenly he stopped.
Hark.
Close at hand came the howling of many wolves. It was almost as if the sound sprang up at the rising of his hand, just as the music of a great orchestra seemed to leap on the baton of the conductor. After a pause of a moment, he proceeded in his stately way to the door, drew back the ponderous bolts, unhooked the heavy chains, and began to draw it open. To my intense astonishment, I saw that it was unlocked. Suspiciously, I looked all round, but could see no key of any kind. As the door began to open, the howling of wolves without grew louder and angrier. Their red jaws with champing teeth and their blunt-clawed feet as they leaped came in through the opening door. I knew, then, that a struggle at the moment against the Count was useless. With such allies as these at his command, I could do nothing. But still, the door continued slowly to open, and only the Count's body stood in the gap. Suddenly it struck me that this might be the moment and means of my doom. I was to be given to the wolves, and at my own instigation. There was a diabolical wickedness in the idea great enough for the Count. I cried out, "Shut the door! I shall wait till morning!" and covered my face with my hands to hide my tears of bitter disappointment. In one sweep of his powerful arm, the Count threw the door shut, and the great bolts clanged and echoed through the hall as they shot back into their places. In silence, we returned to the library, and after a moment or two I went to my room. The last I saw of Count Dracula was his kissing his hand to me, with a red light of triumph in his eyes, and with a smile that Judas in hell might be proud of. While I was in my room, and about to lie down, I thought I heard a whispering at my door. I went to it softly and listened. Unless my ears deceived me, I heard the voice of the Count.
Back to your own place. Your time is not yet come. Wait. Have patience. Tonight is mine. Tomorrow night is yours.
There was a low, sweet ripple of laughter, and in the rage I threw the door open and saw without the three terrible women licking their lips. As I appeared, they all joined in a horrible laugh and ran away. I came back to my room and threw myself on my knees. Is it then so near to the end? Tomorrow, Lord help me and those whom I hold dear. June 30th, morning. These may be the last words I ever write in this diary. I slept till just before the dawn, and when I woke I threw myself on my knees, for I determined that if death came for me, he should find me ready. At last I felt the subtle change in the air and knew that it was morning. And then came the welcome cockcrow, and I felt that I was safe. With a glad heart, I opened my door and ran down to the hall. I had seen the door was unlocked, and now escape was before me. With hands that trembled with eagerness, I unhooked the chain and drew back the massive bolts. But the door would not budge. Despair seized me. I pulled and pulled at the door and shook it till, massive as it was, it rattled in its casement. I could see the bolt shut. It had been locked after I left the Count. Then, a wild desire took me to obtain that key at any risk, and I determined then and there to scale the wall again and gain the Count's room. He might kill me, but death now seemed the happier choice of evils. Without a pause, I rushed up to the east window and scrambled down the wall as before into the Count's room. I went through the door into the corner and down the winding stair along the dark passage to the old chapel. I knew now well enough where to find the monster I sought. The great box was in the same place, close against the wall, but the lid was laid on it, not fastened down, but with the nails ready for their places to be hammered home. I knew I must reach the body for the key, so I raised the lid and laid it back against the wall. And then I saw something which filled my very soul with dread. There lay the Count, but looking as if his youth had been half renewed, for the white hair and moustache were changed to dark iron grey. The cheeks were fuller, and the white skin seemed ruby red underneath. The mouth was redder than ever, for on the lips were gouts of fresh blood, which trickled from the corners of the mouth and ran over the chin and neck. Even the deep, burning eyes seemed set amongst swollen flesh, for the lids and pouches underneath were bloated. It seemed as if the whole awful creature was simply gorged with blood. He lay like a filthy leech, exhausted with his repletion. I shuddered as I bent over to touch him, and every sense in me revolted at the contact. But I had to search, or I was lost. I felt all over the body, but no sign could I find of the key. Then I stopped and looked at the Count. There was a mocking smile on the bloated face, which seemed to drive me mad. This was the being I was helping to transfer to London, where, perhaps for centuries to come, he might, amongst its teeming millions, satiate his lust for blood, and create a new and ever-widening circle of semi-demons to batten on the helpless. A terrible desire overcame me to rid the world of such a monster. There was no lethal weapon at hand, but I seized the shovel which the workmen had been using to fill the cases, and lifting it high, struck with the edge downward at the hateful face. But as I did so, the head turned, and the eyes fell full upon me, with all their blaze of basilisk horror. The sight seemed to paralyze me, and the shovel turned in my hand and glanced from the face, merely making a deep gash above the forehead. The shovel fell from my hand and across the box, and as I pulled it away, the lid fell over it again and hid the horrid thing from my sight. The last glimpse I had was of the bloated face, blood-stained and fixed, with a grin of malice which would have held its own in the nethermost hell.
That man... That man should be dead. Who gets hit with a shovel and lives?
I mean, I hit Micah with a sheet pan thinking he was a robber once, and he didn't die.
We had to go to the emergency room. He had a concussion. He needed 4 stitches. Aaron had to stay up all night with him.
Wait, that's why Micah has that scar? He told me he got it fighting.
I mean, he fought a sheet pan and lost.
Wow.
But all this evidence, I mean, a normal person would laugh all of this off. So, like, if he stood by it, it must be true.
You can tell the guy is desperate for sure. At the very least, he was being tortured inside the castle by someone sadistic.
So then, why make it supernatural? I would think it's far more believable to say, like, hey, some eccentric rich guy kidnapped me for a couple of months and then I escaped. He does escape, right?
This last bit is water damaged like hell, so I can hardly tell. Simon, do you remember how Harker's account got out?
His fiancée at the time, Mina Murray, was the one who publicized the diary's existence along with a Dr. Van Helsing, who was willing to stake his reputation on it.
So, for all we know, this is just a really old and crazy catfishing attempt by Mina to get some money after her man had a nervous breakdown.
It did ruin Van Helsing's reputation. He was never taken seriously in the psychology field again. That much we know for a fact.
Okay, so say this diary is real. Why wouldn't they have just published the whole thing in, like, the London Times or something?
Harker makes references to letters he attempted to send. Maybe he managed to get one out he didn't write about. One that only gave Mina the barest hints of what happened, so perhaps she didn't know all the details?
Ah, that is a reach if I've ever heard one.
The journal is here, though. We have it in our hands right now. So maybe it just never made it back across the pond.
Then how'd they even know about it?
Well, there's nothing saying Harker didn't survive and tell his story to everyone. We just don't have any more of his journal here to study. It looks like the back half of the pages have been ripped right out.
If there's all of this, I bet there's more in the rest of the journal that could point to some clues in the castle.
I know that look.
What look?
The I'm about to go do something crazy in the name of science look.
But you love breaking the rules. Besides, the castle is right there. And this is just verifying the account, which is just good research practices. Am I right, Simon?
Well,
Right.
This sounds like we're gonna piss off our very old and slightly scary groundskeeper, and frankly, I don't want to get killed by him. He'd probably smile while he did it and apologize for inconveniencing me.
Boo!
Okay, you know what? Fine, I'm in. Let's do it.
Are you serious?
Why not?
I can think of so many reasons, like...
And none of them really compare to showing off in front of my girlfriend, which is my main aim here. She's happy, I'm happy, right?
Absolutely. I can't wait to see you Sherlock this shit. You're gonna be so dashing.
I still think this might be a little unwise. I'm with Jamie.
Jamie's just worried we're going to actually have fun while we break the rules, something he'd never risk trying.
Wow.
What, am I wrong?
Morgan?
You think I can't take any risks?
Jamie, I didn't mean it like that.
Oh, but you did mean something by it, right?
Jamie, please.
Forget it. I don't... Ugh. Simon, come on. Dude, let's just go to the tavern. Simon, come on, dude, please.
I'm sorry, Jamie. I was going to keep on studying the journal. I could meet you later.
Fine. I'm going to the bar. I'll catch up with you all later.
God, sounds like my dad. Text us!
God, he always does this.
To be fair, that was a little harsh. Jamie's not one to underthink choices often.
Except when he just opens his mouth to say stupid shit. Sorry, I know. I'll apologize later, okay?
Well, that's settled then. Come on, while Simon was deciphering some of Harker's handwriting, I found some things for us to read. I say we find some nook in the castle to curl up in and read these to each other.
Wait, where'd you get that stuff?
Not telling, the librarian pointed it out.
But he hasn't said more
A
than...
lady has to have her secrets. Bye!
Later, Sai.
Unbelievable. Well, now it's only a few pages. I think I can manage to make this text out somehow.
I thought and thought of what should be my next move, but my brain seemed on fire. As I waited, I heard the distance of a Romani song sung by merry voices coming closer. and through their songs with the rolling of heavy wheels and the cracking of whips, the Zgini and the Slovaks for whom the Count had spoken were coming. I ran from the place and gained to the Count's room, determined to rush out at the moment the door should be opened. There must have been some other means of entry, or someone had a key for one of the locked doors. There came a sound of many feet tramping, and dying away in some passage was sent up a clanging echo. I turned to run down towards the vault, where I might find the new entrance, but at the moment there seemed to come a violent puff of wind, and the door of the winding stair blew to me with a shock that set free the dust from the lintels. When I ran to push it open, I found that it was hopelessly fast. I was again a prisoner, and the net of doom was closing round me more closely. As I write, there is in the passage below the sound of many tramping feet, and the crash of weights being set down heavily. Doubtless, the boxes with their freight of earth. There is the sound of hammering. It is the box being nailed down. The door is shut, and the chains rattle, and there is a grinding of the key in the lock. I can hear the key withdraw, and then another door opens and shuts, and I hear the creeping of the lock and bolt. I am alone in the castle with those awful women. They are the devil of the pit. I shall not remain alone with them. I shall try to scale the castle wall further than I have yet, and then away for home. Away for the quickest and nearest train. Away from this cursed spot, from this cursed land, where the devil and his children still walk the earth. At least, God's mercy is better than that of these monsters, and yet the precipice is steep and high. At its foot a man may sleep as a man. Goodbye, all. Mina!
Thank God for phone flashlights, otherwise we'd be using an actual torch or something.
But it would be cool as heck, right? Very period piece.
I mean, if we're doing a period piece, why can't it just be a Pirates era one?
Oh, you just want to be Anne Bonny.
I can't help it. She's an inspiration. She shot her own men for being cowards. You gotta admire the hustle.
Does that make me Mary Read?
Only if you put on some thigh-high boots when we get home and wear only those boots.
Then yo-ho, it's a pirate's life for me.
Home sweet home.
And now it's time for cuddles and sleep.
So demanding. I must not have had service on the way home. It looks like Jamie left me a message.
Wanna listen to it now?
Nah. I'll listen to it before we actually head to bed. He didn't leave 10, so he's not in trouble or sad, so it's all good.
You know him a little too well, huh, Morgan?
Well, enough that he thought he should take a knee at Halloween. Let's not bring it up. I'll listen to it when we brush our teeth. For now, snugs.
Case file number 18B97S. Evidence recording M1. First voicemail left on Morgan Murray's phone by Jamie Hannigan. Left late on day 2 of the incident.
Hey, this is Morgan. If I didn't pick up, I'm probably busy or ignoring you. Shoot me a text if it's urgent, and if not, leave a message here.
Hey, Morgan! I'm really sorry about earlier. I was, I got a little heated. I know I need to work on that and do therapy or whatever, but hey, I'm trying to leave him a message. Sorry, I'm not coming back to the place tonight. I'm gonna go. Where are we going again?
My flat, darling, remember?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to this guy's flat, and I'm gonna sleep the drunk away. And I'm gonna get laid. Oh my God, Morgan, I'm so glad I packed condoms. Holy shit.
Oh, come on, handsome. We have a whole night to ourselves to enjoy. Forget about your friends for a little while.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I gotta go, Morgan. Save me some eggs or something tomorrow morning. Bye!
You've been listening to The Dracula Inquiry, produced by the Artsonists. This episode was written by Alex E. Hanbury. Technical direction and editing by R. Cline. The roles of Simon, the Vampire Brides, and Marius were played by Andrew Kilpatrick. The role of Lacey was played by Jessica Lynn Jakopak. The roles of Jamie and Jonathan Harker were played by Alex E. Hanbury. The roles of Dracula and the Grieving Woman were played by R. Cline, and the role of Morgan was played by Julia LaPlante. Want to help us dig deeper into the mysteries of Dracula? Follow us on Instagram and Twitter for news and more, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and share this series with a friend. Thank you to everyone who has shown support so far, and tune in next week for another episode of The Dracula Inquiry.